Later that week, Emily called. Her voice was sweet, too sweet, the kind of syrup people pour when they're hiding salt underneath. "Hey, Dad," she said, casual. "So, how were the cigars?" I looked at the empty mahogany box on my table. The card lay beside it like a knife with 2 words on the blade. "I gave them to your father-in-law," I said. "Richard loves them." Silence. Then a sharp inhale, like someone burned a hand on a stove. "You did what?" she shouted. The sweetness snapping off her voice like brittle candy. As she caught herself, tried to stuff the anger back in the bag. "I mean, wow, that's generous." "You sound surprised," I said. Another silence, shorter this time, then she laughed too loud. No, just he'll appreciate them. He's always been a fan of the finer things. Anyway, I have to run. Happy birthday." The line went dead. I sat there, phone warm in my hand, the house colder than it had been a minute before. I reached for the number Detective Morales had given me. "Record every call," she'd said. "Even if you think it's nothing." I told her what Emily had said. "Morales didn't say you were right. She never gave me anything that easy. She said, if she calls again, don't ask questions. Let her talk. We'll try a controlled call if we can." Richard stabilized. The poison had burned through him and left a map on his labs that made the doctors shake their heads. He was a big man brought low, hands that had built a life twitching at the edges of a blanket. His wife, Marlene, stood by his bed and stroked. His hair the way she must have when he fought fevers as a boy. She squeezed my arm when I visited and said, "This is not your fault." I believed her with my ears but not my chest. Morales called 2 days later. "It's aconitine," she said. "Cononite. Wolfsbane. Monkshood. You can drip it on tobacco and it burns without losing power. It's not easy to come by unless you know what you're looking for." How many people know what they're looking for? I asked. "More than you want to think about," she said, "but not enough to make this random." The next call came from Emily. This time I tapped record before I slid my thumb across the glass. "Dad," she said. Fast, practiced, breathy. "I just heard about Richard. Is he okay?" "He's alive," I said. "Doctors say it was. Something in a cigar." "Oh my God," she said, and the way she said God made me think of old movies where everything is a stage. "That's horrible. Where did he get them?" "They came in the mail," I said. "No return address, just a card." "You know the box? Handsome, mahogany, gold trim, good taste?" She said, "Flat, 1 beat too slow." "Well, I hope they find out who did it." "You sent them," I said, even. "Your handwriting on the card, a father knows." Her breath caught. She recovered. I found them at a shop online," she said. "They offered gift cards. I wrote the note as a surprise. 'Happy birthday, Dad.' That's all." She pushed the words hard like a broom across a dirty floor. "What?" "Shop, a Cedar Bay tobacconist," she said, picking a name out of air. "Google it." "I will," I said. "I'll also ask Detective Morales, too." She didn't hang up. She didn't apologize. She didn't ask me not to call the police. She said, "You know, ever since Mom died, you've been different." Harder. She said it like a verdict, then softened her voice. "I wanted to do something nice, but you always have to make it a thing." "I made it a thing," I said. "I didn't lace anything with poison. We don't even know what." "It was," she said. "People smoke all kinds of it, could have been. Anything." Then she cut herself off. "I have to go. Tell Marlene I'm thinking of them." The line went dead again. I called Morales with the recording. She didn't say good job. She said that Cedar Bay doesn't exist. We're working on the label. Return postage came from a self-service kiosk over in Bayside, one of those that doesn't need a clerk. Cameras faced the line. "We've asked for footage. Do you think I should talk to her?" I asked. "Get her to say more?" Morales said, "You should let me talk to her. We'll ask her to come in. If she declines, we'll talk to a judge. The thing about waiting is, you remember everything you don't want to." I remembered Emily at 8, hair in 2 braids, feet, swinging off the porch swing, asking why smoke made rings. I remembered her at 19, telling me I didn't understand her life. I remembered her at 30, calling after her wedding only to ask about my pension. I remembered her not calling when her mother got sick, then arriving at the funeral like a guest. I remembered every empty chair. They called her in. She brought a lawyer. Good ones always do. He was the kind of man who likes chairs that roll. He sat beside her and answered for her whenever the questions had two sides. One that helped her and one that told the truth. She sent a gift, he said. She didn't send poison. Where did you buy the cigars? Morales asked. A shop, Emily said. Which shop? I don't remember, Emily said. How did you pay? A card, Emily said. Which card? I don't remember, Emily said again, faster. Looking at the lawyer like the answer might be inside his chest. Morales didn't lean back. She never does. We traced the postage, she said. Bayside self-service kiosk last Tuesday, 6:14 p.m. We pulled the footage. You wore a blue coat and a hat and you looked over your shoulder 3 times. Emily's cheeks went white in a heartbeat. The lawyer put a hand up. My client is done talking. Your client will either be done talking here, Morales said, or later, in a court, where the words are bigger. Leave your number. They left, stiff. Morales rubbed a hand over her face. We'll get a warrant, she said. Bone computer, the works. I went to sit with Richard in ICU. He looked better when the machines chimed in the right rhythm. Marlene had fallen asleep in the chair by the window, mouth open, exhaustion, wearing her like a coat. I sat on the other side and talked about the kind of nonsense that keeps people alive, high school football scores, the neighbor who insists on mowing at dawn, the pie the church ladies brought that had more Cool Whip than pie in it. Rich, I said quietly. I'm sorry, his eyes fluttered. He didn't wake, stayed anyway. 2 days later, Morales called. They'd searched Emily's townhouse. They'd found a laptop with searches that made my stomach sit up. How to poison cigar. Wolfsbane. Dosage, aconitine plants by, does smoke destroy toxins. They found an order confirmation for Aconitum napellus seeds from a botanical cellar 2 states away. They found a small mortar and pestle with traces of white residue that the lab would later match to the same aconitine they'd found on the cigars. They found a dark glass dropper bottle that once held tincture. It now held traces of a burn your mouth, puther alive poison. They found the outfit she wore at the kiosk folded on a chair. They also found a spreadsheet, debts lines in red, that got longer every month. A second tab labeled policy with a note, beneficiary status, and a dollar amount next to my name, and another next to our hail, another line next to Dad House. Like a grocery list you don't admit to anyone. They took her in. The lawyer came again. He asked for a deal. He said, she's under stress. She meant it for her father, not Mr. Hale. Attempted murder doesn't become better when you pick the wrong victim, Morales said. Also, I can read. They charged her. First with attempted murder for the package she mailed, then with a federal charge for mailing injurious articles, because the United States takes a dim view of poison in the Post. The prosecutor added assault with a deadly weapon when Richard's labs came back and matched the bottle in Emily's kitchen. The judge gave her bond with an ankle monitor and a list of rules longer than the church bylaws. She went home to a townhouse full of quiet. People said things. They always do. Some version of how could a daughter. Some version of are. You okay? Some version of you must be devastated. I was devastated, and I was also busy with a lawyer of my own. Because there is a law in this state called a Slayer statute that says if you kill someone you don't inherit from them. A niece who's a paralegal sent me the link with 3 crying faces and a heart. Rachel filed a notice with the court. Under no circumstances was Emily to benefit from any policy, count, insurance, or estate tied to my name. Insurance companies got the letter. So did my bank. So did my pension. So did the land trust later. When I told them what I would do next, Morales called me in to listen to a recording Emily had made by accident. She'd called someone and left the line open. The transcript landed on my lap like rain. She'd spoken to her husband, Ryan Hale, Richard's son. He was not kind. He was not brave. He did not say, "What have we done?" He said, "You idiot. Why didn't you just wait until he came over? Why did you switch the labels? Why did you write the note? used words that made the detective next to me shake her head. He said we needed the cash. Ryan's phone gave up a dozen messages like that. Receipts on his bank account for an online gambling app. A photo of the exact box on my table in his photos, time-stamped a day before I got it. Browser history. For aconite that matched Emily's, they took him too. He stood in court and tried to make himself taller. The judge didn't notice Richard sat up in bed the day they arraigned his son. He watched the TV with the sound off and read the captions as if they belonged to someone else's life. He breathed. He drank water. He asked for soup. For his wife's hand, he did not ask for a cigar. The doctor said he shouldn't have anything stronger than warm air for a while. And we all laughed, because sometimes the only thing you can do is let your mouth pretend the world is okay. I didn't go to every hearing. I went to the big ones. I sat in the back on a hard bench and watched a woman who has my eyes and my chin, and the mouth of a stranger stare at the table in front of her and not at me. Oh, no. I listened to a prosecutor lay out a simple story we all know. Money, the idea of money, the dream of easy money. Wow. The lie that says money is more important than breath. I listened to a defense attorney talk about stress, trauma, poor choices, a husband with a grip like a vice. None of the words changed the fact that a man almost died, because a girl I raised thought my death would solve math. They offered her a deal before trial. Attempted second-degree murder, mailing injurious articles. 5 years with a chance of parole, probation after, no contact orders with me, and with the Hales forever. She took it. Ryan took his own and got more because he acted like the kind of man who doesn't believe rules apply to him until the door shuts. I went home and made a sandwich. I stood at the sink and looked at the yard where Emily once drew suns in chalk on the concrete. I thought about when exactly the path bent. Maybe there isn't a place. Maybe there is. Maybe all the places are smaller than we want. Morales came by on a Sunday, because in a small town, cops knock on the door even when they're off duty. If the case lives where they drive. She brought a pie. From my mother, she said. I told her not to, but she likes you. Tell her thank you, I said. You don't have to, she said. Do. We sat on the porch and watched a gull steal a sandwich from a kid and drop it and eat it anyway. There's another thing, she said. We found life insurance paperwork. It's not yours. It's Richard's. There's a second policy on him that lists Ryan and Emily as beneficiaries. The amount is ugly. Were they trying to kill him too? I asked. My voice sounded like rope. She lifted a shoulder. I think they tried to kill you, she said. Then they panicked when the box crossed the fence, and when it didn't. They tried to tell a story to themselves about how this might be an accident, and they'd cash one thing if not the other. I don't know. Motives are sloppy. Facts aren't. Facts, I said, and took a bite of pie so I wouldn't say anything I couldn't put back. I did what my wife taught me to do when life tries to make you small. I cleaned something that didn't need it. I fixed a hinge that squeaked for years. I oiled the cutting board. I wrote a letter to a little girl I used to know and put it in a folder where it could sit and be found without being a sentence. It said, I loved you when you were born. I loved you when you moved. I loved you when you did not call. I loved you when you sent a box that tried to break me. That love is not permission. Love is a chair. I will not stand up from it to run after. You, while you light matches. If you come back and you are safe to be around, the chair is where it was. If you do not, there is a chair anyway. It is for whoever sits and breathes and does not make my kitchen a courtroom. I set the letter in the trust folder. Right under the Slayer statute note Rachel had filed. Above the banking alerts, next to a photo of Evelyn in a hat she hated months. Past the way months do. Richard walked slowly down a hallway and graduated from a walker to a cane. Marlene learned the names of his new medicines and how to advocate for a dose change without apologizing. She hugged me in the grocery store one day, both of us in the cereal aisle, because that's where grief goes when it needs sugar, and said, we don't blame you. And I said, I know. And we cried, and then we put a box of Cheerios in our carts and pretended to talk about prices. I called the life insurance company, told them to add an exclusion for Emily while she served her sentence and after. Slayer statute covers it, the man said. But we'll add a note too. I changed my will with Rachel's help, so if anyone asked, the answer would already be on paper. I opened the land trust packet with Sam at the kitchen table and walked through the long list of what-ifs. If I move, if I get sick, if I die, if the roof leaks, if the taxes bite, if the wind is louder than it should be, if the fence falls. Every if got a box and a name. Then I did something I never thought I'd do. I wrote to Emily, not in anger, not an apology, not with a check. With the same plain voice I'd been using for months, it said, I know where you are. I know what you are. Did I am breathing? I hope you learn to breathe where you are. I don't know if I can ever see you again without seeing a box. It is not a judgment, it is a scar. If you do the work people call work when they mean hard, and you become someone who can sit at a table without making it dangerous, write me. Not now. Someday. Use a postcard so I don't have to open a box. Tell me one thing you learned that isn't about you. If I'm alive, I will read it. If I'm not, my lawyer will. Either way, your words will have a place where they are not the beginning of a plan. I did not mail it. I gave it to Rachel to mail for me in 6 months. You can wait, she said, because the best lawyers in this kind of story, no time is a tool. The first postcard came a year later. It was from a prison library. The picture on the front was a stack of books. On the back, in the handwriting I know better than my own, Emily had written, I shelved The Old Man and the Sea today. I hated it in high school. I liked it today. I think I was angry then because the fish wasn't money. There was no I'm sorry on the card. No reason, no excuse, no flame, just that. I put the card in a drawer and took it out the next day and put it in the folder. I did not write back. Not yet. You don't put a roof on a house you haven't framed. You just keep the rain off the wood and check the weather. Around then, Lily turned 10 and asked if she could have a Cuban sandwich for her birthday party because she thought it was a joke. We laughed and said only if we could explain to everyone. Why that was funny and also sad? I grilled pork. You made pickles. We learned to press sandwiches with 2 cast iron pans because the fancy press broke on the second one, and we didn't need it anyway. Lily lit a candle and closed her eyes and said, I wish for nothing, and we all laughed because wishing for nothing is un-American and also a sign you have enough. I thought that was the end of the story. It wasn't. The story came back one more time the way tides do. A new lawyer wrote to me with the sentence people send when they have to do a job they don't like. Your presence is requested at a parole hearing. I went because the chair you put in the room at the beginning of a story should still be in the room at the end, Emily spoke. She didn't perform. She didn't cry for points. She said the thing you say when you get tired of lying. I thought money would fix the ache. And then she added the part you don't always hear, and I was too proud to admit I didn't. Know how to live with not enough, she said. I did this and listed it, each verb like a brick. She ended with, I don't deserve anything from anyone. And then she sat down. They gave her parole. Not because of me. It's because the machine of the world sometimes has mercy when a cog fits. She got out with a job in a kitchen and an apartment. She didn't choose and rules that kept her from calling me. She did not call. She sent one more card 6 months later with a picture of a pie on it. On the back it said, cinnamon makes even a bad day taste like a plan. No name, no return address. I laughed and put it in the drawer. I'll decide what to do with it when I decide. I sat on the porch that night with a slice of my own pie and watched the dogwood throw shadows like lace on the steps. The ocean breathed. The house held. The chair was where I left it. The folder in the desk was heavy with proof that a man can decide what to do with a box. Open it, hand it off, call a cop, build a fence, leave a chair, tell the truth, wait, forgive, at the speed it arrives. I didn't need a cigar. I needed air. I had. Parole is a long word for a short leash. Emily got out in late spring with a job in a church kitchen and a list of rules that ran longer than the Lord's Prayer. No alcohol, curfew, no contact orders for me in the Hales. She didn't call. She sent one postcard through Rachel like we'd agreed. Picture of a pie and 5 words on the back, cinnamon makes a bad day edible. No name. I put it in the drawer and let it sit there like a stone you can turn over later. I kept my lines where I'd drawn them. I didn't drive past her side of town. I didn't ask Morales for updates. When the old ache lifted its head, holidays, quiet nights, anniversaries that mean something to one person and not another, I let it be a feeling and not a plan. Sometimes that is the whole trick. Richard did the work you do when you get sent back to your life. He traded the quiet of the ICU for the noise of a rehab gym. A cane, a schedule taped to the fridge, and a wife who knows how to be kind and stern in the same sentence. He learned to like water more than he liked whiskey, quit smoking because the doctor said never, and because the word poison, it carved itself into his lungs in a way nobody can ignore forever. One afternoon toward the end of summer, he shuffled up my walkway with Marlene on one arm and a wooden box under the other. He looked good in that hard-earned way-thin, clear-eyed, steady. "Got you something," he said, setting the box on my table. "Or maybe I'm getting rid of something. Depends on how you look at it." It was a humidor. It's a good kind cedar. Lining brass hinges. The kind old men keep polishing long after they forget why. Empty, clean. "I don't want it in my house," he said. "Been staring at it like it owes me. Doesn't. Maybe you could use it for screws and pencils. Or sea glass. Something that won't kill a man." I put my hand on the lid. The wood was warm from the sun. "I can do that," I said. He nodded, mouth tight. "And this," he said, fishing something from his pocket, tossed it to me like we were boys and the world was simpler. It was a silver lighter, heavy as a memory, engraved with his initials. And the year he'd retired? Throw it away, or melt it, or keep it to remind yourself what not to start again. "I'll give it a job," I said. "One that doesn't need flame," he said. We drank coffee that Marlene said was too strong, and which we both pretended wasn't. We didn't say thank you for not blaming me. That had been said in other rooms. He said a different kind of thank you, a strange one I never expected. "If it hadn't been me," he said quietly, eyes on the seam of the table, "it would have been you. I hate that I got the hit. Hate that it wasn't you more." "I know," I said. "Me too. Both parts." He tapped the humidor. "Use it," he said. And when they left, I filled it with screws and pencils and the small things a man keeps to hold a house together. It fit on the shelf better than any cigar ever did. Detective Morales started showing up on flyers. Not because she wanted to, you could tell, but because the town keeps its own kind of memory. The police held a community night with the postal inspector in the library basement. There were coffee urns and a tray of cookies that had all the oatmeal ones, left at the end because chocolate chip is nobody's fool. Morales stood up in plain clothes and said, "If you didn't buy it, don't light it. If it doesn't have a return address, don't open it. If your stomach falls when you read a thing, call someone with a badge. Don't make your kitchen." A courtroom. A hardware store put a hand-lettered sign on the counter. Jack's rules for gifts: 1, if you didn't ask for it, you didn't need it. 2, if you don't know who sent it, wait. 3, if waiting bothers someone, keep waiting. The diner taped a smaller version to the register. Nitrogen monoxide, boxes without a name. People laughed. People followed them more than they would have if the city had printed a brochure. The hospital did its own quiet thing. A nurse in pulmonary told me they started calling it Jack's rule in the break room: no unknown smoke. Someone taped a list to the vending machine with the phone numbers for the poison center and the postal inspector. The young respiratory therapist who'd learned the hard way how lungs lie to you brought me a plastic plant once with a ribbon around it. "For your porch," she said. "The only leaves I trust in a hospital are fake." I did the little work in my own house that says you still live here. I replaced weather stripping. I fixed a broken hinge. I oiled the front door so it stopped announcing me to the neighborhood every time I left. When the sea wind had the nerve to try and take the screen door in a squall, I swore at it right back and set a new hook. Every now and then, a small envelope would arrive at Rachel's office with my name on the back. She opened them first. If they were fine, she forwarded them. If they weren't, she shredded them and didn't tell me what she shredded. 3 postcards made it through in the first year, one with the pie, one with a book. One with a sentence that was less a sentence and more a breath. I'm learning to make soup without a recipe. I didn't reply. I didn't slam the door. I held the line I had drawn with my own hand. The strange city habit about me filtered into places I didn't expect. The high school had a mail safety line on their parent newsletter in November check sender, check return. CALL first. The feed store had a photo by the register of a mail bin and a caption in Sharpie. Know your carrier. They know. You. Mrs. Lopez from the post office took me to lunch once and told me the carrier on my route had started filling out hold mail cards for widows when their lights went out. 'Cause a pile of envelopes is a kind of signal nobody should. Miss, we've always done it, she said. We're just louder about it now. Winter came early one year. The ocean was a sound machine stuck on storm. The cold made the windows talk in their frames. On the first Tuesday of December, a box appeared on my porch, small, plain brown, no return address. I didn't touch it. I stood inside the door and looked at it through the glass the way you look at a raccoon who thinks your cat food is a buffet. My body had a memory. So did my brain. Psst. I picked up the phone and called Morales. Probably nothing, I said. Wait. Probably being dramatic? You weren't dramatic, she said. Sit tight. I'll swing by. She came with a younger officer who looked like he'd rather be doing anything else on a cold morning than standing on an old man's porch. But he didn't complain. Morales lifted the box with gloved hands and set it on my table. What? To open it here or in a room with a drain in the floor? She asked. Here, I said. If I run, every time a shadow looks familiar, I'll trip and break a hip. She used a pocket knife to cut the tape. She opened the lid like she was defusing a bomb and then laughed low and shook her head. You're going to need to start sending a thank you for every package that doesn't kill you, she said, and turned it toward me, sea glass green brown. White, a piece of blue so bright it looked like the sky had gone swimming. On top, a postcard. The front was a picture of a dock we used to fish from when Emily was small, before life learned to be clever. On the back, for screws and pencils, for maps, for something that doesn't burn. Not Emily's handwriting. Aline's. I knew. I know the sound of a kettle in my own house. I called her before I thought it through. You picked it up? She asked, relief in her voice like steam. I didn't put a return because I didn't want your stomach to fall when you saw my name. We're not trying to surprise you anymore. I didn't open it, I said. Morales did. Thank you. Come get your box back. We don't want the box, she said. Wanted the thing inside to live somewhere warm. Richard found that blue piece on the day he walked without the cane. He thought you should have it. Come over, I said. We'll open a box together like people who know how. It came, we poured sea glass into the humidor, and it made a sound like a pocket full of nickels from the right kind of day. Richard set the bright blue piece on top like a star. We put the postcard under the cedar lining where no flame can find it. We drank coffee that Marlene said was too strong, and which we both pretended wasn't, and let the cold outside be foreign. For a while, when they left, I stood at the sink with a dish towel over my shoulder and watched the ocean lift and drop like a chest that will not stop. I thought about the first box and the plan inside it, thought about the second box and the promise it carried. I thought about the space between the tooth apart where a man decides the kind of person he is in a house when no one's watching. I don't know how the rest will go. That's not a line. It's the truth. I know there'll be more mail. More days, more tests you don't see coming, more chance for the human heart to surprise you in both directions. I know I have a rule about boxes and a humidor full of things that don't kill a man and a lighter. I had made into something else, a small silver hook I'd keep by the back door to hang my hat on. It's good for nothing except reminding me to put something down when I come. Inside, when people ask me about the cigars now, I don't tell them the whole story unless they have 2 hours and a pot of coffee. I tell them the short version. My daughter sent me a box of Cuban cigars, I say. The next day she called and asked, so how are the cigars? Said I gave them to your father. In-law, he loves them. She went quiet and then shouted, you did what? That's the day I learned how to treat gifts and how to treat fear. If you didn't buy it, don't light it. If your stomach falls, call someone with a badge. If you can still love a person without inviting them to burn your kitchen down, do that. And if you get a second chance, put sea glass where the smoke used to live. Then I make cinnamon toast, because it turns even a bad day into a plan. I sit in the chair I kept for whoever I am when the storm passes, and I breathe. Asterisk parole. Keeps its own calendar. A year in, the town had folded the lesson into itself. You saw it in small places, a handwritten sign by the hardware store register. A line in the school newsletter about safe mail, a librarian's desk with the poison control number taped. Under the phone, the people who had been loud went quiet. The people who had been quiet spoke when it mattered. Every so often, someone would ask, careful as folding a napkin, "Do you ever hear from her?" And I'd say, "Sometimes a postcard." To Rachel, that's how we asked it to go. And then we'd talk about something that keeps your hands busy weather stripping, soup, the way the ocean looks like a coin on gray days. One Sunday, Morales stopped by after church with her hair still wet from the rain and a folder tucked under her arm. "I'm off duty," she said, "but I thought you'd want to see this." Inside, a clip from the paper I don't read because I don't like the smell of their ink. Church kitchen fire contained. Volunteer pulls 2 out. A photo was the back of a woman in a hairnet and a gray shirt with a stain at the hip. The caption did not print her name. The article didn't either, because she'd asked them not to. "Do you want me to?" Morales started. "No," I said. "It's enough." A month later, there was a notice in the state register. Sale of aconitum, Nepellus seeds prohibited to the public without license. Somebody in the Capitol had paid attention to a line in a small-town police report. Somebody had decided we didn't. Need to help fools be clever? The garden store put a little sign next to the seed packets that said, "Poisonous species removed. Ask us for native replacements." They sold more coneflower than they ever had. Meanwhile, the practical parts of the trust kept doing their small work that adds up. The roof stayed snug. The furnace got its checkup on time, like a man going to the doctor before he has to. The land trust sent Sam once a year with a clipboard and boots to walk the fence. She always brought a baked thing from a farmer's market blueberry. Muffins once, apple cider donuts, another time and refused money. "You're paying me by keeping something in one piece," she said. Lily got bigger in increments you don't notice until a coat sleeve suddenly doesn't reach a wrist. And my son Mark, who works 2 towns over and brings his calm with him, came for Tuesday toast like it was a sacrament. She put $2 a week into her not slime jar and 3 into the account with her name that she checks with the seriousness of a person who has decided math can be a friend. In 5th grade, she asked the science teacher if they could do unit on how plants can be medicine and poison both. They brought in someone from the extension office who knows which leaves don't belong in tea. Lily came home with a handout, and the kind of certainty you get when you ask about danger out loud and nobody tells you to hush. Then spring turned to summer and summed out a letter from the Board of Parole, the way the weather app sends a storm warning there. "Whether you like it or not, victim impact statement may be submitted," it read. I sat with it at the kitchen table, looked at the sea glass in the humidor, at the little hook by the door where my hat hangs, the blue piece on top catching. A square of sun, and I wrote 1 page. It said, "I am alive. The man you hit is alive. I don't know what to do with your name in my mouth. I do know what to do with fear. Set it down before it becomes a plan. I have a chair in my house for the people I love. You're not in it. That may change. It may not. That is not the purpose of this letter. The purpose is to tell the truth. In the room where lies get shorter, money is a shovel. You can dig the right hole or the wrong one. You dug the wrong one. If you decide to pick a different tool, call the person whose job it is to watch you do it. They will tell me if I need to know I sent it." Then I made toast, because you can't live on letters. Richard knocked 2 days later. Unannounced, with a grin like a boy in a cane, he refused to give up because it made him feel prepared. "Guess what I did today?" he said, and I said, "You." Taught Marlene how to check the air filter, because it's what I'd been trying to get him to do. He laughed. "Close," he said. "Taught myself how to like tea. The doctor said it could be worse." He sat for exactly 6 minutes and then left, because that's what his energy allowed now. Later that week, he called me and said, "Never thought I'd be glad I ran out of breath, but I am. Wasn't me. It shouldn't have been you." There's a world where both things can be true, and we still see each other at the feed store and say we did okay. I said we did okay. And we did, more often than not. The land trust sent a newsletter in the fall with a photo of a family on a porch 3 streets over, holding mugs like awards. "First-time owners underground lease," the caption said. Their kid had red hair so bright, it looked invented. The text explained in short words why a thing the banks consider strange can sometimes be the most ordinary way to live. No flipping. No lottery wins, just roofs and rain gutters and pumpkins on steps. They didn't put my name in it. They didn't need to. Sam signed it for the dirt, which is my favorite blessing now. Time works on us the way the ocean works on sea glass. It smooths the dangerous edges if you keep tumbling, and it throws you back on the shore when you're ready to. Be part of someone's jar. 2 years from the day the mahogany box sat on my porch in the wrong light, a thin brown envelope slid through Rachel's slot. She drove it over herself because she is that kind of lawyer. "You can read it," she said, setting it on the table. "Or you can leave it here, and I will read it for you." I picked it up and recognized the calm version of my daughter's hand. Not the sharper teenage version. Not the performative adult one. Just letters in a row that looked like they had stopped trying to impress the world. Dad. I don't know what to do with the word dad. I hate that I have used it as a lever. I threw out 100 drafts that started with I and me. The women in group said to start with what I learned that isn't about me. So I learned that people in kitchens do more about fear than people in boardrooms. Learned that recipes are laws that don't mind being amended if you own what you won't. Changed. I learned the difference between being hungry and wanting. And I learned I can live with the first and not be ruined by the second. I learned that sending something without a name is cowardly even when it is a postcard. And the only way to honor the truth is to say the word out loud in a room where someone can tell you you're wrong without the floor falling in. This is not. And ask, this is not a plan. This is a report from a place you taught me not to go back to. If there is a chair someday, I will sit if you put it out. If there is not, I will learn to stand and not knock anyone else's chair over while I do it. I folded the letter. I put it in the folder between the early postcards and the photo of Evelyn in the hat. I called Rachel and told her to leave Emily's name on the no-contact list as written. Then I made tea because Richard had been right. About some things. The town did a strange thing in winter that made me feel we were all in on the same joke. The church put a little card in the pews with the poison control number on one side and the postal inspectors on the other. The title said "Love the Living." Under it, "Don't sign at parties. Don't open boxes without names. Don't give up on people who don't know those 2 rules yet." One afternoon in February, the doorbell rang while the ocean was doing its marching practice outside. A package sat on the mat. "My chest did the thing it does," the label said. "State Dock Property Return." The return address was the department. I called Morales anyway, out of habit. "Looks like property release," she said. "It won't be a bomb. It might be a rock." We opened it on my table. Inside, a folded hairnet, a tiny spiral notebook full of recipes in a hand I knew, a cheap wooden spoon with burn marks near the bowl, and a library card from the prison with a stamp returned. There was a note, short as a breath. I took the hairnet off and kept the rest. "I am learning to make soup without the recipe. E. Do you want me to put this in the folder?" Morales asked. "Yes," I said. "And please put that spoon by the stove." Ah, she smiled, the small kind, and did. Spring rolled around with the wheels squeaking like it does. Lily had her science fair. She built a diorama of a porch with a tiny box and a tiny door and a tiny sign that said, "No signing at parties." The judge wore a tie with rockets on it and laughed into his sleeve. She won a ribbon and taped it inside her closet door instead of on the outside because she doesn't like to brag, and I like her more for that. She also asked me a question you want to get right. "If I see her," she said, 10 going on making choices, "what do I do?" "You don't lie for anyone," I said. "You don't run toward fire and you don't fan it. You say hello like a person." You tell me when you get home, that's all. You won't be mad? She asked. I'll be proud, I said. If you tell me if you hide it, I'll be mad at the hide. Won't be mad at the hello. A week later, at the farmer's market, she tugged my sleeve and nodded toward the coffee line. Emily stood there with a paper cup, hair shorter than I'd ever seen it, eyes on the menu like it was a map. Lily lifted her chin, squared her shoulders in a way I recognized from her mother, walked up and said, "Hello." Emily looked at her, then at me, 3 stalls away, then back at the cup because soup kitchens teach you about hot things, she said. Lily came back, bought radishes because they were ridiculous and perfect, and we made a salad. That night that stung our mouths, and we were glad. I didn't go talk to Emily. She didn't come over. The town did the strange courtesy small towns do when everyone has read the same article. They nodded without staring. I don't know what happens next. Maybe nothing. Maybe something. Maybe that was the whole something. The last piece of the story happens on a Tuesday because all the important things do in my house. I was reading on the porch, the dogwood getting ready to be arrogant, the gulls arguing about truth, when a box came, small, brown, name on it. Mine. Return address. A P.O. box in town. I smiled without liking it and called Morales, and she said, I am going to start sending you a punch card. 9 boxes opened. The 10th pie is free. She came. We opened. Inside, carefully wrapped, a single cigar. Not Cuban, not fancy, not poison. A note. If I were the kind of person who sent a thing without a return, this is what I would send. But I am the kind of person who sends sea glass instead. There's a show at the church kitchen Saturday. No posters, just pies. If you want to eat one, come at noon and bring cash. M. Marlene's hand. I laughed. Morales laughed. I'm not coming to your pie show, she said, then wrote the time down. We went. We ate pie that tasted like cinnamon, knew it was a secret, and butter was still legal. Richard poured coffee and didn't flinch when someone lit a match for a birthday candle across the room. Emily washed pans in the back, shoulders moving like shoulders do when a person has decided to keep water inside the sink. We did not say hello. We did not leave early. We left exactly when the pie plate was empty, and the city coin in Lily's pocket made a dull clink against the door frame on the way out. On the walk home, Lily said, Do you think the story is over? No, I said, but it's quieter. What? Do we do when it gets loud again? She asked. Same thing we did last time, I said. We check the name on the box. We call someone with a badge if our stomach falls. We put sea glass in the places Smoke used to live. Keep a chair for the people we love, and we don't move it for the people who haven't learned where chairs go? She thought about that and then said, Can I have toast when we get home? You can, I said. It's Tuesday. We made it, and the cinnamon did what it always does. Turned the sharp edges into lines you can hold. I hung my hat on the little silver hook and sat in the chair that has my shape in it. After all these years and listened to the ocean. The box on the porch was empty and inside the trash. The humidor on the shelf was full of things that do not burn. The folder in the desk was heavy with letters that tell the truth even when they don't fix anything. The land under the house was still where it had always been under our feet. In the trust, in the town, out of the way of anyone who would turn it into a chip. Maybe that's all a life is, deciding what to do with boxes and chairs. And the little hooks that hold the hats of the people you love when they come inside to eat pie in the room. Smells like cinnamon and not like fear. Asterisk parole. Year 2 was less about courtrooms and more about chairs. The one I kept in my kitchen. It's the ones in the church basement where Emily washed pans. It's the metal folding ones at the library where the postal inspector taught old men how to say no to a box. People sat, listened, got up, did small things right mid-June. Morales called with a question that sounded like a key turning. The DA's office is piloting something, she said. Victim-offender dialogue. You don't have to do it. I wouldn't ask if I didn't think you could keep your lines while you sat in the room. What would it be? I asked. Table. A facilitator. Me. You. If you want. Richard. If he wants. Marlene. Maybe. Emily? No gifts? No cameras? No deals? Just words that land where they should. I told her I'd think. I did the thinking my weight the sink with hot water and a dish towel wiping a clean plate until it shone. I called Richard. He said, I want to see if the mouth moves like the paper did. Marlene said, we'll leave if the floor starts to tilt. I called Rachel. She said, I'll sit in the hallway. If anyone moves a line, I'll call. We met on a Thursday because I don't do big things on Fridays too much. Room for bad dreams. A church classroom. A table that wobbled until Morales folded a packet under the short leg. A circle of chairs and a list on a whiteboard in dry erase. No ask. No blame. No shouting. No touching. Be specific. Emily came in last. With a parole officer I'd never met in a way of standing, I recognized a woman holding herself together like a box without tape. No hairnet, a gray shirt scrubbed clean, hands that smelled like soap. The facilitator was a woman with a voice like a nurse and a posture like a tree. She nodded to each of us by name. We'll speak in bites, she said. You can swallow. Or spit, but don't throw. Richard went first. He said, you almost ended me, and the words didn't crack. I still want to smoke on certain mornings. I don't. I hate that it wasn't him more than I hate what happened to me. I hate that I think that, and I'm still here. That's the truth. Marlene said, you made my house a hospital for months. I learned machines I didn't want to learn. I did it because that's what you do when vows have hands. I don't know what to do with your name. Some days I can hold it without cutting myself. Some days I can't. It was my turn. I said, I have a chair in my kitchen. Not in it. I don't know if you ever will be. It's not to punish you. It's to keep my house upright. Emily looked at the table like it was a shoreline she'd been trying not to drown at. I did this, she said, and listed it. Each verb pushed out like it weighed what it weighed. I bought seeds. I brewed wrong. I dropped liquid on leaves. I put poison where breath should be. I mailed a thing I didn't name. I lied into a phone. I told myself I was owed. I told myself it would be clean. It wasn't. Nothing after is clean. I did it because I thought money would fix the ache. It didn't. It made a hole you have to walk around to get to the sink. She didn't cry. That disappointed me in the part of me that still believes tears buy something. Then I saw her grip the edge of her chair until her knuckles went white. And I understood she was working harder than water, the facilitator said. What do you want to say to the people you hit when you threw? Emily turned her head one at a time. Marlene, she said. Hey, I took your rest. I can't give it back. I can make soup in your kitchen if you ever need it. I can keep the sink empty. I can put my hands where they don't break anything. Marlene nodded once and didn't say yes and didn't say no. Richard, she said, I learned a thing that doesn't help you. Sometimes living is harder and better than dying. I'm glad you did the harder. I'm sorry I made the better part necessary, he grunted, which is how old men say, I might hear you. Dad, she said, and the words sounded like a test. I used to sit on your lap while you smoked and draw maps on your shirt with my finger. I made a plan to erase the person who taught me to breathe. I don't have the right to ask for your chair. I don't know if I ever will. I know how to bus a table. I can do that for as long as it takes. The facilitator looked at me. I thought of lunch counters and of how long people sit on stools before a plate arrives. You can bus a table, I said. Not in my house. Not yet. In rooms where the sink is already deep, and you can keep calling Morales before you mail a thing, even a postcard. Morales snorted. You can call the post office, she said. Call me for boxers. Call them for stamps. The talk went on like that. Specific bites. We stood when we were done. The parole officer held the door for Emily. She walked out like a person who had learned how to put her feet where floors don't give. Rachel met my eye in the hall and lifted her chin a lawyer's version of a blessing. After, in the parking lot, Morales looked at my hat hook in her mind. Did good, she said. I kept my lines, I said. That is good. I went home and made tea because Richard has me doing that now, and I set a slice of bread under the broiler and shook cinnamon sugar and a line down the middle like a road. Lily came by after school with a flyer for a tools and school Saturday. We sat, we ate, we didn't talk about meetings, we didn't name. Time kept doing its job. Emily stayed at the church kitchen, moved to prep cook at a diner 2 towns over where the pie isn't as good as the coffee, and nobody minds if you bring your own cinnamon. Richard took his cane on days he didn't need it because the feel of wood comforts you when you've been knocked down by air. Marlene joined the male safety crew at the library and became the unofficial queen of the don't sign at parties bookmark. Morales got a promotion and didn't move, which is the nicest thing you can say about a good cop in a small town. Rachel put a new restorative line under my trust file with 1 sentence. Dialogue done. Chair in place. Boundaries hold. Sam drew another diagram about what ground leases do and taught a realtor who hated the idea less by the time she left. Lily kept being Lily. In 6th grade, she ran a table at the farmer's market with a sign that said tools and school keep. The good hands busy, and she sold bracelets and bad brownies and better lemonade and came home sunburned and proud. In 7th, she built a robot out of a coffee can that could roll across the porch and not fall down the step. In 8th, she asked if she could use my porch for a scam school video with friends who like to make films. They filmed me at the table and I said my one line, "Don't sign at parties too stiff 3 times, and then write once." They cut it into a clip that every kid in town has probably seen by now because kids tell each other things adults forget to say until it's too late. I had one more thing to do, and it took me longer than it should. The silver lighter Richard gave me had been sitting in a drawer, heavy with a job it shouldn't have. I took it to a friend of his who works with metal, out past the feed store where the road smells like hay. Give me something useful. I said, he cut it, split it, heated it, bent it. A week later, he handed me a small hook with a new shape, smooth and simple. I screwed it into the wall by the back door and hung my hat on it. And now every time I come in, I put weight on something that used to be fire and isn't anymore. That feels like a sermon I can live with. People like a neat bow on a story. The truth is, the bow is a drawer full of letters, a jar full of sea glass, a land trust packet with Sam's notes in the margin, a hook by the door that used to be a lighter, a humidor full of screws and pencils, and a bright blue piece that catches afternoon sun. It's a chair you leave where it belongs, cinnamon that turns Tuesdays into a plan. It's a town that learned to put phone numbers on bookmarks. It's an old man who answers the door for boxes with a name and lets the rest ride the tide back out to sea. One morning, years later, when Lily had a learner's permit and my knees had more opinions, we were sitting on the porch, watching the ocean do its argument with the sky. She asked, if you had never opened the first box, would the story be better or worse? Different, I said. Shorter. Maybe not mine. She nodded the way she does when she's filed a sentence where it belongs. Do you think she ever sit in the chair? She asked, glancing at the kitchen through the screen. I don't know, I said. I know it'll be there whether she does or not. It's my job. Chairs, hooks, rules on bookmarks, tools in jars. Box names on, labels. The rest belongs to the ocean. Okay, she said, and put the car keys on the table with a small smile because she knew I was going to say no to driving until her homework was done. We went inside, made toast because it was Tuesday. The cinnamon smelled like a thing. You can't buy a room that learned to be safe again. And if you're wondering, yes, every so often another box shows up. Sometimes it's sea glass. Sometimes it's a jar of pie filling labeled in Marlene's hand. Sometimes it's nothing. And the best thing in the world is to carry nothing to the trash and know you have the number of a detective, the name of a lawyer, the habit of not signing, and the peace of a house that still breathes. That's the whole of it for now. If it changes, I'll be the first to know. The ocean will tell me. It always does. Asterisk parole year 3 slid past without a headline. The town's habits held. The bookmark at the library with 2 phone numbers didn't curl at the edges because Mrs. Lawson laminated it. And the hardware store kept my rules by the register. The school put don't sign at parties in the August packet, like sunscreen and pencils. People did the small thing in front of them. Lily learned the engine of a car the way some kids learn a piano by listening. I taught her the old trick of turning the radio down when the dashboard started to talk, as if quiet helped you hear. Better? She laughed and did it anyway. She drove too fast on the first right turn and too slow on the second and found the middle. We kept a rule on the porch: no driving lessons on days the ocean looked angry. It worked as well as any rule does with teenagers and Tide. The trust kept making boring beautiful. The gutters got cleared without turning into a story. The water heater got flushed on schedule because Erin set a reminder on her phone with an alarm that sounds like a bell on a bicycle. The ground lease had its first test when a cousin, I hadn't seen since he was 12, sent a realtor to the door with a smile and a pitch about cash offers. Sam called me before the man hit the walkway. I like his suit, she said. You can wear it to someone else's porch. Richard came by with a magazine I'd never read. He pointed to an article about atrial fibrillation and said, Thought I had this. Didn't feel like I needed to read the word anyway. We sat and read in silence. He drank tea on purpose. I poured some without making a face I would have made 5 years ago. Arlene left us with a plate of cookies and said, If you boys break anything, you fix it before dinner. But she smiled while she said it. Midwinter, I had a scare that wasn't a headline. My knee gave out on the second porch step and I sat down to fast and heard the old man noise that means something is going to hurt tomorrow. Erin showed up with ice, the visiting nurse with an elastic bandage, Rachel with the insurance card, Morales with a laugh. I can run your name at the hospital for free, she said. It's the little perks. The trust paid the bill. The ground lease paperwork lived under the folder and didn't turn into a rattle on a snake's tail. Emily did not call. Parole did not move. The world kept being ordinary. Tools and school grew into something with a banner. Rachel helped Lily and Teresa set up a bank account with 2 signatures and a rule about receipts. Morales taught a 20-minute safety talk at their first Saturday fix, and 3 dads who had never used a torque wrench learned to like the click. A grumpy man with a nice mustache brought in his mower and left with it purring and a weird look that turned out to be gratitude. Lily learned to say no to free junk at yard sales and yes to the box of good screwdrivers that cost a little but would be used a lot. She kept the knot slime jar by the door at home and the habit of putting $2 in even when it was easier to keep it. Year 4 brought grief of the kind that isn't a headline either. Richard got pneumonia in a body that had already been through enough. He died in his own bed with Marlene, humming a song that wasn't to him and Morales standing in the hall. Because sometimes a cop is also a neighbor. The funeral smelled like coffee and starch and the particular sorrow of men who tell jokes because they don't know how to write speeches. I said a few words because you can't sit on a porch with a man for years and not learn a language. Richard taught me to stubborn things, I said. Quitting can be an art, and tea is not the end of the world. People laughed because it was true, and because laughter fits in the mouth better than the thing we don't want to name. Marlene squeezed my hand hard enough to make me look at her. He left you something, she said later on the porch. She handed me a small tackle box. Inside, 3 lures, one with blue paint flaked off, and a note, for when the wind is right. I put it under the humidor with the sea glass, house full of containers that used to hold other kinds of life, now full of screws and pencils and a bright blue piece that catches the light late in the day. I wondered if Emily would come stand in the back of the church. She didn't. That was better for everyone. Marlene still sent a pie to the church kitchen once a month and wrote a note on the foil just pie. No message. The pie women started cutting it into smaller slices so more could take a bite. That felt right. The tools and school banner got heavier 501c3 at the bottom in small print. Rachel handled the papers. Sam hosted a meeting on the porch about a second house going into the land trust. And a teacher who had thought she would have to keep renting forever wrote a check and cried into her coffee and said, I can live with rules if it means I can plant a rose bush and know it'll be there next May. And of all the sentences I've heard in this town, that one might be my favorite. Somewhere halfway, the DA sent a note with the polite weight that says we're not done yet, even if we want to be. Final review of parole. They didn't need my presence. They wanted my letter. I wrote what I knew, it said. She is alive. So am I. So is the man whose lungs she kicked. I do not know what to do with chairs or gifts. I do know what to do with lines. I have them. I'll keep them. She stays steady. The town will do what towns do, learn her better than the worst. Things she did that doesn't happen in kitchens. Happens in rooms with sinks. Let her keep washing pans. I mailed it and cut the grass because that's how I tricked my body into believing. I've done more than right. On a Tuesday in August, the church kitchen put out a flyer and a tone-only church kitchens have bossy and sweet at once. Saturday, pie. Cash only, no boxes on the porch. I showed up with a 5 and a rule about how many slices a man can eat without sinning. Marlene wore a blue apron with flour up to her elbows. Emily worked the sink. She didn't look up. When I paid, I didn't make her. Lily paid with a 10 and refused her change. It's for the sink, she said. Emily didn't cry. I felt a little proud, which is a new shape in my chest when it has her name on it. Morales got her promotion that fall. She didn't move. People brought casseroles to the station with a little sign that said, "We fed the ones in uniforms. Bring pie to the desk, folks." She laughed and walked a new beat that looked familiar and a little higher. A younger detective named Park started showing up to the library nights. He stumbled over the "don't sign at parties" part, and Lily teased him until he got it right, and the whole room cheered. If the story had needed a last box, it came on a Sunday in November, 2 days before my birthday, because whatever we learned, the calendar hasn't changed. Brown, name, return address, not a PO this time. An apartment on 3rd Street over the coffee shop where the chairs are too low for my knees. I called Morales. She said, "I'm at my mother's. We're watching a bad movie. Open it without me." I didn't. I called Rachel and put the phone on the table and opened it with the careful hands of a man who has learned to let the air go first. Inside, a loaf of bread. Real, brown, round. A card with a printed bakery logo at the top. No handwriting. The card read, "Bread is a series of lines you keep. Measured, patient. You can ruin it at any step and still eat it.
Happy birthday!
Sign this because the bakery printed it. Receipt will have who it is for the person who needs that part." The receipt was there, folded under a paper band, paid in cash. 2 loaves, one got delivered to Marlene's the day before. Laughed. Rachel didn't. "Would you like a lawyer to interpret a loaf?" she said, dry, then softer. "You're okay?" "I'm okay," I said. "It has a name, and it's not a bomb. It's bread. We eat bread. Don't sign bread. Add." "That to your bookmarks?" she said. "Don't sign bread." I took half to Marlene. We ate it with too much butter and didn't play forensic. We let it be bread. Years rolled. Lily found a lane that looked like engineering and loved it until she didn't, and then loved it again. She taught a Saturday breakers and fuses class for moms at the library. 3 came the first month, 9 the second, 20 the third. Erin stood in the back and cried because watching your kid teach a thing you didn't think you'd need might be the kind of wealth no pension can buy. Nathan coached Trey through his first real estimate. They wrote it down. They shook hands. Did more work than they talked about. I wanted to pin a ribbon to both of their shirts. The land trust did the oddest thing. That's the whole point. My porch stayed my porch. Pumpkins sat in a row in October. Lights went up in December. Tea got made. Toast got eaten on Tuesdays. See, glass caught the light and reminded me to keep a jar for the things you can't fix, but can hold without bleeding every now and then. A postcard came through Rachel. Books. Soup. A picture of a sink clean enough to eat from, which made me laugh and also nod because I've eaten off worse. I didn't answer. I didn't slam it. Door. I didn't move a chair. I did not unlearn what I learned. The morning I turned 70. Lily drove us out to the headland before the sun and made me walk slow with my knee brace and then fast for 10 yards without it, both on purpose. We watched the ocean pretend to be new. She took a photo that made me look kinder than I feel on most days and less tired than I sometimes am. "Do you think any of this matters?" She asked, and she meant everything: boxes, bookmarks, chairs, cinnamon, humidor, land trust. Sea glass, porch, yes. I said. But not all at once. One thing at a time. It's all anyone gets. We went home. There were 2 cards in the mailbox. One from the church kitchen, signed by 10 women with flour in the loops of their names. One with a printed bakery logo. And a line in that calm hand, "Cinnamon is long work. Thank you for making everything take longer." I smiled. I didn't frame it. I put it in the folder. Then I made toast because it was Tuesday, and that's the only way. I know to end a story like this and keep living. The ocean told me what it always does when I stand there too long enough. Go in, put your hat on the hook, check the name on. The next box, keep your lines, keep your chair, love the living.